Welcome to our Excel lab on creating a personal budget. On the screen, you're going to be seeing a worksheet that we're going to develop. This is a sample. I've on purpose hidden the values. And on the left-hand side, we're going to have some categories in terms of income. We have our yearly salary, monthly salary, and a percentage of salary deductions and take-home pay. The calculations are going to be here. You're going to see some values here. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to see different categories. These categories represent personal expenses. And on the right, you're going to see some percentages adding up to 100. The percentages represent how much money are you spending or do you wish to budget based on your salary. So for example, here we have a percent of 39.1. So what this means that 39.1% of our take-home pay is going to be allocated to housing and so on to the different categories. When you add up all the categories, you get 100% of your total budget. On the right hand, on the next column, you're going to see the budget amounts, and we're going to create an Excel formula that is going to go ahead and calculate how much money does the percentage of the paycheck, of your take-home paycheck, is the equivalent. So we have housing, we have 39.1% of my total income. So how much is that value over here? When I have a take-home pay of X, I'm going to have 39.1% of that allocated to housing, and here we're going to see the amount. If we add up all of the amounts at the bottom, we should have a number that, if everything is correct, should be the equivalent to the take-home pay, assuming that we have 100% of the budget allocated. So that's the end of the demo right now, and now we're going to open up a blank sheet in Excel. Excel opens like most other Office applications with a screen where you're going to see some choices of templates and a list of your most recently opened files. You can choose templates for many different categories. We're not going to be discussing that, but today we're going to be working on a very simple worksheet, and we're going to open up a blank worksheet. Excel file is called a workbook, and a workbook can have one or several worksheets associated with it. Over here we're working on sheet number 1. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. We can have multiples. On a different lab, we're going to be discussing the use of multiple sheets. On the interface, it's going to be similar to other Microsoft Office 365 products. You're going to have a ribbon, different tabs, and under each tabs we have groupings. So Home is where you will find the most commonly used features of Microsoft Office products. So for example, you will have adjustments for your fonts, sizes, font types, alignments, and so on. We will be visiting some of those. As with other Office 365 products, if you hover over a particular icon and leave it for a second, you're going to see a pop-up indicating what is that icon for. So for example, here we have one indicating that this particular control shows border types or font colors and the alignments, whether something is left aligned or fourth aligned. When we see a little arrow like this one next to a particular icon, for example, this is font color, and this little arrow, when I bring it down, gives you what's called a gallery of different colors, so we can choose colors. The Excel worksheet, when you open it up for the first time, is very similar to other products like Microsoft Word. You have a completely blank screen where you're going to do your work. Now, the way that Excel organizes work on a worksheet is based on a grid. So you can see these faint lines that are running horizontally and vertically. This is the Excel grid. The Excel grid is associated with columns, and I'm going to click on a column here. You see this column A, column B, and so forth, all the way going through. And then you have rows like row 1 and row 2. We can choose a single cell. We can choose a group of cells by clicking your main mouse button and dragging, or we can click and select a vertical group of cells, we have a horizontal group of cells, a vertical group of cells, and you can also have a rectangular group of cells. Now, the reason we select cells is similar to what we do, for example, in Word. If we have a group of cells and we want to give them a particular format, we can select them and then choose the format that we want, and we're going to be doing some of that today. Here I'm selecting cell A2. The way we address a cell is by referencing the column where it's located and the row where it's located in that particular order. So this is cell A2, which is highlighted right here, and it's on column A and row 2. If I were to select another cell, for example this one, it would be called A10. Let me go back to A2. We know that it's A2 because we can see the intersection of column A and row 2. Also, there's a couple of other ways we can tell which is a row selected. So for example, you notice that column A is a little bit darker, and the indicator for row 2 is also a little bit darker, which gives you a visual orientation. Column A, row 2. Also, on top over here, we have what's called a name box. The name box is going to indicate what is the cell that's being selected. You can also use the name box, and I'm going to click on it, to change this value, and I'm going to change it to A10. And when I hit enter, notice that the cell selection now jumped to cell A10. So here we are in column A and row number 10. When we select it, we see that name over here. It's the name we just typed. So we can use this to indicate where we are located right now, and also to go to a particular cell. When we go to a particular cell, I'm going to remain on A10. I'm going to type a value, and the value I'm going to type here is hello. When I go to A10 and I select it, now look at the name box, it says A10. I also have another part of the interface which is called the formula bar. The formula bar is to indicate what is the contents of whatever cell you're being selected. So when I click on cell A2, and A2 we've been to before, notice that the formula bar is empty. If I go to A10, now it reflects the content of row A10. I can go now to A2 and I'm going to type in a value in there, and the value is going to be I am cell A2, and I hit enter. And when I hit enter, now notice that A2 has the value that I typed in the formula bar. So the formula bar tells you what the contents of a cell is, and we'll find out pretty shortly why we use the name formula bar instead of content bar, while the cell shows you a representation of what that is. So I'm going to do something here a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and select cell A2, and I'm going to change the format of cell A2 by going over to the Home tab, and in the font group I'm going to embolden the contents of A2. So here I'm A2, and if you notice, A2 now looks like it has a bold font. However, when I select it, there is no emboldening over in the formula bar. So the formula bar gives you an exact representation of the contents. However, what the cell shows you is a display manifestation. So that's why you see it bolden over in the cell, but not in the formula bar. I can also put in things other than text. I can put in numbers. So we'll see how that happens later on. In summary, we have an interface with a ribbon and home group and other values that we're going to be exploring as we move along. We've looked at the interface, which is mainly a grid, and that grid has letters on the top and numbers on the left. The top row with the letters represents columns like column A, B, and C, and the numbers on the left represent rows like row 1 and 2. The intersection of a column and a row is a cell, and whenever a cell is selected you can see it highlighted, and whenever a row is selected you can see its value in the formula bar. if it has any value. Also, the cell being selected is represented in the name box, which is this box over here. And you can see when you click on different sections or different cells, this value over here in the name box is going to change. Okay, with that general introduction now of the interface, let's proceed to our lab. I have opened a new Excel workbook and it has a blank worksheet. And let's start entering the data. At the bottom of the screen, I think I've already pointed out that we have worksheets, and we have a worksheet that by default is named Sheet 1. So I'm going to rename this worksheet and give it a particular name. There's a couple of different ways to do it, like in most Excel or most Microsoft Office products. There's several ways of doing things. So the simplest way to rename a worksheet is you double click it, it's selected, and now you can type. Another way to do it is you can right click it and select the name, the rename button. So now we've renamed the worksheet with its new name, My Budget Data. It no longer says Sheet 1. In cell A1, we've entered a label. The label says yearly salary. And notice, by the way, before we do anything else, that yearly salary, when I click on the cell, you can see that there's a bit of spillover to the right. So yearly salary does not fit in completely in the cell, but because there's nothing next to it, Excel is going to allow the spillover. But I'm going to enter now a value in B1. So for this exercise, I'm just going to assume that I have a yearly salary of $24,000. When I enter the $24,000, notice that the $24,000 now is in B1, but the yearly salary now is cut off. The label that I had before with yearly salary is cut off. Here is interesting because when I highlight A1, notice that that is cut off. However, when I look at the formula bar, the content is there, yearly salary. It just cannot be displayed because the space that where it would have been spilling over to is occupied by this value of $24,000. So we're going to see how we correct that later on. In A2, I'm going to enter a new label. And in cell 2, we're going to enter a formula that calculates what my monthly salary is. So here we're going to enter the formula in this area right here. And what it's going to do is a calculation. It's going to take my yearly salary and it's going to divide it by the number of months in a year. Now when you enter values or text in Excel, you typically go ahead and do it straightforward like we did before with monthly salary. We just type monthly salary and yearly salary. And here we have a hard-coded value, which is 24,000. And the 24,000 represents my yearly salary. But over in B2, we're going to do something different. We're going to enter a formula to calculate what is my monthly salary. Now, in Excel, there is two general types of entry. One of them is values, and the other one is formulas. And we tell Excel the difference by starting a formula with an equal sign. So whenever the first character in a cell is an equal sign, then Excel is going to treat that as a formula. So I'm going to type a formula. The formula is going to be equal to 24,000 divided by 12. And divide is $2,000. So if you do the mathematics, you can see that that the results are accurate. $24,000 divided by 12 is $2,000. So we've entered the formula. Here's the formula over here. However, this is not the way that we want to enter information in Excel. It's not very efficient. For example, if I were to change my mind over here, and instead of $24,000, I want to enter now $48,000. So notice that when we change the value in B1, which is a yearly salary, the value in B2 did not change to represent an accurate monthly salary. We know that if we divide 48,000 by 12, this is not the correct number. And let's highlight it over here. So we have 24,000 divided by 12. That's the number we had before. So if we were to change, in order to be able to keep this accurate, we would need to change this to we would need to change this value of 24,000, we would need to change it to 48,000. Instead of using in the formula a hard-coded value, we can use what's called a cell reference. So we can refer to the cell where our value of interest is located. So to calculate a monthly salary, what we do is divide the yearly salary by 12. And here the yearly salary is located in cell B1. So if I go over here to this cell, to this formula, and I delete the 24,000 and I type in B1 and hit enter, now we have a different number. What we have over here is the number, we have here is a new formula that says take the contents of whatever's in B1 and divide it by 12. So let's go back to our original number, and if we change the original number here to 24,000 and hit enter, now we can see an accurate number over in B2, because no matter what the contents of B1 are, the formula in B2 is always going to be accurate. It's always going to divide it by 12. So that's pretty nifty. So that's the way we want to do business in Excel. We're going to try to avoid hard-coded values and use cell references whenever we want to. So in cell A3, we're going to type a new label. And in cell B3, we're going to type now a percentage value. So I've typed in cell B3 the value of 30%, and the 30% is going to represent percentage of your salary that's deducted to pay different items. So if you receive a salary, you are accustomed to see salary deductions like, for example, Social Security payments or insurance, medical insurance payments. In cell A4, I've typed in a new label. It's called monthly take-home pay, and this is how much money you get to take away. This is what you see in your paycheck, actually. What's deposited in your account after all the deductions are there. So in cell B4, I'm going to enter a formula to calculate my take-home, my monthly take-home pay. So here's my formula. The formula reads as follows: B2, which is the monthly salary, this is B2, and it's going to subtract B2 multiplied by B3. So I'm going to take my monthly salary and I'm going to multiply it by the percent of salary deductions, which is 30%. So 30% of my salary is going to go away in deductions. So this is going to give me amount. What is that deduction? And then I'm going to take that deduction, which is calculated here, and I'm going to subtract it from my monthly salary, and now I have a new value over here that's $14,000. So you can do the math and calculate how much this is, but you can see that the formula is pretty much accurate. So I'm going to take $2,000 and I'm going to subtract my deductions. My deductions is 2,000 multiplied by 30%. 30% of 2,000 is $600. And if I take 2,000 minus 600, then I'm going to have 14,000. So we have a pretty good formula there. So let's get things a little bit better running over here, and I'm going to select the value in B2. So right now it's just displayed as a straight number, 24,000 or 2,000. Now that I select it, I can go to the home group and navigate over to styles, and there's a group here called cell styles. And when I click on this drop down box, the drop down menu over here, I can see all these different styles, and what I want to select one is in particular, and it's going to be called currency. So here's currency right here, and I select it. And when I did that, notice that here's the cell styles. Now, although the content, and here's the cell styles, it looks a little bit different. So if I highlight B2, now it says $ 24, comma 000, period 00. Is that what's located in B2? No, what's located in B2 is strictly a number, 24,000 here, with no $, no periods, no commas. However, the display representation changed because I changed the style of those particular cells. I'm going to select the B4 and I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, now it looks a little bit better. Now, the only problem that I still have is that these labels are kind of scrunched up. They don't fit inside column A. So I'm going to change the width of these columns. And I do that by selecting the column head, and I'm going to drag over to the right hand side so column A and B are both selected. And I can change the column width, and I can do it different ways. I can just right click on that, and there I have something called column width, and when I click on that I can type a particular column width. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is go to home, and I can go over to the cells group, and I can format. And when I format, I have a different choices in terms of row height and column width and so on. And under column width, I have auto column width. And if I selected that, it's automatically going to size these columns over here on the left. I'm not going to do that either. What I'm going to do is a little shortcut, a little trick. So as I move my mouse pointer left and right across the different column headings between A and B, as it reaches that boundary between A and B, the mouse pointer is going to change to a double-headed icon. If I double click on that, then Excel is going to apply an auto fit column width. And what it does, it calculates the column width based on the largest or the longest item in that particular column. So the longest item is percent salary deductions, and as you can notice, now it fits completely, and so does everything else. So our worksheet is looking a little bit better. So in the next section, we're going to enter the column categories and the percentage of spending. So we're going to get those values from our assignment sheets. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Microsoft Word document. So I'm going to copy this table over here and drop it into Excel, paste it into Excel. So I'm going to click inside the table, and notice that when you do that, you have a little symbol here on the left. This is a table selection within Word, and when I click on that, I have the whole table selected. If I right click on it, I can see the copy button, and I'm going to just go ahead and copy. Here's the copy button. So I've copied that into my clipboard. Now I'm going to go and navigate into Excel. Now I'm going to paste the contents of that table that I brought in from Word and put it on cell D1. So here I am in D1. If I right click on it, I have the paste options, and there's two different types of paste options. So if I go to the one on the left, it's gonna, if you see the pop-up box, it says keep source formatting. So it will bring the same format that it had in Word. I don't want to do it. It looks a little bit awkward, so I'm going to go to the right, which is going to match the destination formatting, and I'm going to click on that. And now here is the table that we bought in from Word. We're going to have the categories: housing, food, and so on, and the percentages. These percentages are typical percentages. You can adjust it on your own to whichever way you want, and everything is fine as long as this calculation down here arrives to 100%. Now we're going to go to cell F1, and we're going to enter a new label there. So we have labels for category and the typical percentage of the paycheck. So I'm going to go to cell F1, and I'm going to type a new label. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select columns E and F, and we're going to apply to E and F a particular column width. So I'm going to make these. I'm going to right click here and put a column width of. This time I'm going to type it in, and I'm going to make them here a column width of 15 and hit enter. So both these columns have the same width. Everything fits okay. So these fit in a little bit better. I'm going to select the three cells, D1, E1, and F1. And here I've selected D1, E1, and F1, and I'm going to apply word wrap. And it's going to be in the home group under alignment, and there's a button over here. It says AB with a little arrow. If I just hover over, it says word wrap, and I'm going to hit click on it. And notice now how words have wrapped. So category fits fine, but typical percentage of pay now wraps around. This looks quite attractive, and so does my budget amount. So everything fits fine like that. Fits a lot better. So we did that by word wrap. I know that word wrap is selected because I can see the wrap. Also, I can see the button on top under the alignment group. As I select that cell that's word wrap, this is it's darkened over here. And a cell that's not been formatted as word wrap is going to have this icon show clear. So here it is selected. And in column E, I'm going to format all this as percentage. So I have selected column E, and I'm going to apply a cell style to all these cells. So I'm going to go, you've already seen how we do that. It's under the home group, under the cell styles, and I'm going to select percentage. And it shows percent over here. And before, let me go to before and after. Before it had all these decimal points, and over here it doesn't have it. It's just put in as integers, or it's put in with no decimal points. So I'm going to adjust the percentage on it because I do want to use percentages. I want to use decimal points. So I'm going to increase the decimals to just 1 decimal point. So now that I've selected column E, I'm going to go over and increase the decimal values. Here's the icon, increase decimal. I'm going to click it once, and here it is, just 1 decimal point each. And they all add up to 100. So now things are looking a little bit better. This number down here is something that I would like to adjust. This cell has a hard-coded value, 100%. And what I would like to do is substitute this value over here for a formula that adds up all these numbers. And the reason I want to do it is if I change a value over here, this is not going to change like we saw before. So for example, I'm going to take the category personal care, and instead of the 1.2%, I'm going to change it to 10%. And hit enter, and you notice that this did not change, although we dramatically increased this value over here. So here I'm going to press the delete, and I'm going to the delete key, and I'm going to introduce a new formula. This formula is going to add up all these values. So there's different ways to do it. I can create a formula that says equal and then add the value 34 plus 1, 34.1 plus 12.4, and so on. No, that's not going to work well. It takes a lot of time to do that. But I'm going to introduce now a function. Excel has functions, and functions are like built-in formulas that it has to do certain things and automate your work. So there's a the most commonly used function in Excel is called sum, and it's used to sum up values. So I'm going to click on where I want to put my sum, which is in cell E16, and I'm going to go to the home group, and under the home group I'm going to navigate all the way to the editing group, and in the editing group I have this symbol over here, which is the what's called the automated sum symbol, and I'm going to click on that. It's called AutoSum, and when I click on that, Excel has created a formula for me in cell E16, and this is the formula right here. The formula reads equals SUM, which is the name of the function that is Excel has inserted, with a parenthesis, then it has some values in the middle, and then a close parenthesis. What it has in the middle over here is what's called a range. So before we talked about ranges, or we talked about cell addresses as having a column and a row. But now we have a range. So the range here specifies E2 colon E15. If we look at the formula as it's being displayed, here's E2, which is the value 34.1, and over here in E16, E15 has a value 1.6%. So what the formula reads is equal, which is a formula, sum, which means add up whatever is between the parentheses. So what it's saying is add up everything that is between cell E2 and cell E15. And if I hit enter, I have a value of 100% down here, which is cool because all these values should add up to 100%. Now, if I were to change a value like we did before, and over here I'm just going to type in the personal care category, I'm going to type 10%, and I hit enter. Now you notice that there's a change over here in the total. So I'm going to go back and revert to my original. So we know that all these values are going to add up to something, and that value is going to change over here. What we always want to make sure is that the number is 100% so that we have an accurate calculation over here on this side. Now we're going to calculate the budget amount. So the budget amount represents what is the percentage of the take-home pay that is equivalent to this percentage. And that's a straightforward calculation, and I'm going to type it in my formula bar, and it's going to be equal my take-home pay, and I'm going to multiply it by the percentage. And here's the formula right there. So 34% of 1400 is 477.4. Excel has done that. If I double click on this cell right now, I can see the formula. So it's B4 multiplied by E2. So here's the contents of B4 multiplied by the contents of E2, and it's going to give me a value. I'm going to hit escape so I can see it again. So it's 4740. So I can reproduce this formula all the way down here, and that's something that we can do easily in Excel. Now, what I'm going to do is, now is a good time to show you what is the fill function or the autofill. So I'm right now highlighted in cell F2, and I'm clicking over here. I can see that we're in column F and in row 2. So here we are. We can see also in the name box that we're in F2. And this is the formula, B4 multiplied by E2. And I'm going to click on the bottom right hand corner. Notice that there's a little dot over here on the bottom right hand corner. As I move my cursor, also look at my pointer. It looks like a big fat cross or a plus sign. If I move it over on top of that little dot, it turns into what you would call, I guess, a crosshair and an aiming device or a pointing device. If I click and drag that, I can drag that formula all the way down, and it copies it all across. So it's the same formula. So I'm going to do that. However, it didn't give me any values. So let's examine what happened. I'm going to click on F2, and notice that the formula says, and if I double click on it, notice that the formula says that it's multiplying B4 times E2, B4 times E2. And that's a good formula. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press escape to get out of this mode. I'm going to click on F3. And in F3, I look at the formula. And the formula now says I'm going to multiply E3, which is over here, the 12.4%, which is, a good value. But when I look over here, it says B5, and B5 has nothing. So this is a little bit strange. Why has this happened? And to show you what has happened, I'm going to go and give you a little demonstration by opening up another worksheet. So at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to open up a blank worksheet. So I'm going to click on this plus sign, and now I have what's called sheet 2. Here's my budget data. My budget data still is in sheet 1, or in the first sheet. The second sheet, sheet 2. So I'm going to go ahead and enter a value over here in E1, and I'm going to calculate, I'm going to enter the value Monday. And hit enter. And if I click on drag on Monday, on this fill handle, this is what's called a fill handle, and I can drag it down. Notice it's going, look what's interesting. It reproduces the days of the week. If I go over sideways and I were to put in something like January and hit enter, and I can go ahead and reproduce to the right, and it's going to put the months of the year. So what Excel does, it has this fill handle. It allows you to automate certain tasks, copy cells, but it does so whenever it detects a pattern, and when it does it very well. So I'm going to put another value over here, the value 1, and I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to drag down, and it's just going to copy the number 1. So what's different? You would have expected it type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it doesn't. It's because Excel is looking for a pattern. And sometimes it guesses. So here in the case of January, it guesses, well, January is something I recognize as a month name. So maybe what Excel is supposed to do is put in the months, and it did so. Monday is a day of the week, and if I calculate it down, if I drag it down using the fill handle, it does that because it kind of guesses the pattern. But over here, there is no pattern. So let's do something different. I'm going to go and over here type the number 2. And now what I'm going to do is select cell 1 and 2, and now I'm going to drag down. And when I drag down, it notice a pattern. There's a difference between 1 and 2, which is the value of 1. So if I go over here, on the next one is going to go ahead and add 1. And over here is going to add 1. Let's try another pattern. It's kind of a cool pattern. I'm going to type 2 on this one, and I'm going to type 4 on the next one. And now I can select the 2 and 4 and drag down, and it can reproduce the pattern. The pattern is 2, 4, 6, 8, and all the even numbers. And I can do the odd numbers by doing 1 and 3, and do the same thing. And then there's 1 and 3. Okay, so you get the general idea. If it detects a pattern, it tries to do that. So let's go back to my budget sheet, and here it is. So what happened here? What happened here is 4 columns to the left and 2 rows down. So when we go to this column, when we go to the value in F3, it's going to look for B5, and B5, according to the pattern above, is 1, 2, 3, 4 columns to the left and 2 rows down. But 2 rows down, there's nothing. E3 is fine, which is 1 column to the left. That's good. So if we go to the next one, it's the same pattern, repeated again. So E4, which is a 1 on to the left, that's good. But the B6 is 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left and 2 down. So what we're trying to do now is find a way, can we use autofill to automatically fill this down without having this offset go on. So it will always want to reference the 1 column to the left, but it wants to fix this one always to multiply by that value, because this is the value where we're going to extract the percentage from. So we do that by using a different kind of cell reference. So there's 2 kind of cell references. One cell reference is relative, and that's what we've been seeing here. 1 column to the left, 1, 2, 3 column to the left, and so on. But there's another kind of cell reference which is called a fixed cell reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go click on the formula, the one that we know it works, which is an F2, and we're going to modify it. And instead of B4, what we want to do is convert B4, and instead of being a relative cell reference, meaning relative to the position of the cell, we're going to make it fixed. And we're going to do that by typing a $ in front of the column symbol and a $ in front of the row symbol. So now it says $B, $4 multiplied by E2. And now I'm going to hit enter. The formula did not change, but now when I drag this down, notice the difference. Now we have some values over here, and if I click on row F3, on cell F3, notice that F3 now reads $B, $4 did not change, and multiplied by E3, and I can go and do all the same for all of them. And if I can double click there, notice that it also refers to $B, $4 multiplied by E15. So that's called absolute versus or fixed versus relative cell reference. So the next thing that we're going to do now is make sure, add up all these numbers over here. And the way we're going to do that is by using the same technique that we had here before, which is we're going to use the sum value. So I'm going to click over here in under the column, under the total cell, which is going to be cell F16, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to go to the auto sum, and I'm going to press enter and see what happens. And look, we have 1,400, which is exactly the number we have over here. So everything is working beautifully. 1,400 here, or 1,400 here, 1,400 there. 100% represents a total. if I were to change a value over here, let's go back once again to personal care, I can enter 10% and hit enter, and notice that the numbers are off. So because I have now 108.8% and I have this value of 1,553, so we know that there's a problem. The problem obviously that this does not add up to 100%, and that's why we're off budget. We had a monthly salary of a take-home salary of $1,400, but we're spending, our budget is calculated on 1,523, so I need to adjust these numbers to make sure I get 100. So I'm going to return to the original. And here we are, once again at 100% and 1,400. If by chance you notice that this number does not match, even though you have 100%, is because this column has not been set with a precision of 1 decimal point. So we may have a rounding error. So make sure that if you find that these values don't line up, that the decimal point here represents 1 decimal point rather than 2 or 3. So that's all we have for this slide. We hope you enjoyed it. It's very practical. This is one that you may want to use in real life to calculate your own personal spending compared to how much money you're making. So you can change these values over here like we did before. I'm going to type in a number that we used before, and let's say I got a huge yearly salary increase. And we have 100% spending. We didn't change the value, we changed this, and now we're making a take-home pay of $2,800. And here's $2,800 down here. We have an excellent worksheet to help us calculate our budget. Hope you enjoyed, and catch you on the next lab. Bye.